is kind of my launch out of my product line. Obviously, you guys know I competed for a number of years. I haven't competed since my comeback last year. I was just saying to him on the way here, I wish I would have competed this year for the 50th anniversary and waited, because I really didn't have a lot of time to prepare last time, but haven't officially retired yet, even though I'm leaning towards not competing again, but some days I wake up and I feel like it, some days I don't. I'm still training often, not eating as much. It took me a lot of calories to maintain the size I did for all the years. And what you saw for a workout is just kind of abbreviated, but kind of the same exercises I did. Obviously less weights, but the main thing I do with my training, any of you guys that follow my training, I like to train rather fast. 45 to 60 seconds rest between each set. That's the most important thing for me. And a lot of volume. I never did crazy weights. Me being 41 now, I just turned 41 this year. I have zero joint pain, no issues whatsoever. A lot of you guys know I tore my bicep in 11. I lost the Olympia to Phil Heath that year. Tried to come back in 12, couldn't. Came back last year. As I started preparing, I tore this bicep. So now I'm looking to have surgery to fix this when I wasn't going to fix it. But it's kind of hindering a lot of my training, especially my reverse grip exercise, which I think are important for back. A lot of you guys that are bodybuilders, obviously not probably the women as much, but reverse grip was a huge part of my training for my back to build the width. And you know, even doing like the reverse pull downs, which I started with, it kind of bothers it a little bit when I pull on it. So I'll probably have that fixed at the end of the year once I slow down. It's just I'm touring right now, rather heavy, and I'm not situated in Las Vegas that much. So who has a question for me as far as anything, diet, training? Go ahead, mister.
How old were you started?
18th birthday, joined the gym when I was 18, that was 1991. I actually joined the gym my 18th birthday. Wanted to be bigger. I went to school for criminal justice. I was going to be a cop. And somehow, about 6 months after training, I got coached into competing in a local show. I thought, okay, why not? I did it, and I placed second my first show, and then a year later I was competing at the Teenage Nationals at 19, which I won my class. Lost the overall to Branch Warren, who's still competing nowadays. And after that I was totally hooked on to be a bodybuilder. That was about the decision time for me that I wanted to pursue a career. Bodybuilding was a little different back then. It was before the internet. I learned how to train from guys in the gym, whereas a lot of you guys can watch our videos online. Some of you guys remember those days when it was when there was just magazines, right? I mean, not the internet. So I kind of watched guys train. I overtrained myself a little bit, but I worked with a dietitian early on, and that's really how I learned about how to put on size. And people always ask me, how do I get big? You know, how do you do what you do? And the main thing is honestly, you guys, is a diet. Like, I eat like a machine when I'm trying to train and get big. You know, we can talk about supplementation, all that stuff, but you have to have a set meal diet, eating every 2.5 to 3 hours. I always ate at least 6 meals a day. I remember the first diet I wrote out, you know, I had 6-meal breakdown, you know, protein, carbs every meal, and I followed it to a T every single day. I couldn't afford supplements in the beginning. I mean, I remember saving up like $40 for my first thing of protein. I drank it all in a day. I thought that was a secret, you know. So you know, you sit there and laugh, and you know, sometimes I walk, you know, I sign at these stores like I did today, and these young kids come in, and I know they're thinking, okay, I'm going to buy Jay's protein, and it's going to get me huge. I was thinking the same thing, you know, and I try to tell everyone, as much as I want to sell supplements, I have a company. Supplements are perfect for supplementing in with a great diet. You have to have the diet set. And you know what? A lot of you are probably saying, oh yeah, I follow a great diet. You really don't know what a set diet is. Everyone's diet's different. And I always ate like more carbohydrates than I did protein. Even at my peak when I was 300 pounds and pretty lean, I mean, I was eating like 300 grams of protein a day, but I eat 1,000 carbs. You know, especially to get through those training sessions. I mean, I would train nonstop. I would do 30, 40 sets for back. Like that training you saw, I mean, I would just do set after set after set exercise. I would pick like 10 different exercises and do 3 or 4 sets each, you know. It's crazy. But that's what made me the best at what I did. And I never planned on being the best. When I started training, I just wanted to be bigger. I worked my way up. you know, I come from a small town in Massachusetts, 6,000 people where I grew up. My brothers and sisters, I'm youngest of 7 kids, and none of them ever lifted weights. My dad's 85, he's still active every day, and he had no idea. He wanted me to work in my family concrete business, but I wanted to be a bodybuilder. So I pursued the dream, moved to California when I was 25, and the rest is history.
When you were 18, you went into the gym. What made you go into the gym?
I'll be honest, like it was at that turning point. I was 18. I was getting tossed between my family wanted me to come work in the concrete, and I wanted to do something else. I didn't want to work with a shovel the rest of my life. So I joined the gym to relieve a lot of stress. When I was in the gym training, I didn't think about anything else. I was going to college at the time. I was stressed. It was becoming an adult, and it was hard for me to face that. You know, I was, you know, having fun in high school. Once I graduated, it's like, okay, I got to go to college, which I really didn't want to do, to be honest. You know, I would have rather, you know, I wanted to make money, and I knew that would take time away from making money. I was working like 2 different jobs, and I remember going to school and studying and getting my meals in. I would work a security job overnight, eating all my meals, and then I just couldn't wait to go to the gym every day. Just those 2 hours in the gym was like the time I didn't think about anything. So I think a lot of us, I mean, if you get in the gym and you really think about it now that I'm mentioning it, I mean, think about when you get into the workout and you get that pump going and you start training and you're looking at yourself and you're seeing the changes. I mean, that's what motivates you. Everyone always asks me every day, what motivates you, Jay? I mean, I was motivated by the changes my body made. I was an easy gainer. I wasn't one of these guys that was stuck at a body weight. I just saw myself climb and climb and climb. And I was happy when I was like 220, then I was happy at 240. I mean, it got to the point where it's like once I got up over 275, it got uncomfortable, but that's what I had to do to be competitive. And obviously, I didn't think I could win the Olympia till the first time I placed second behind Ronnie Coleman in 2001, where I realized, wow, I can actually win this thing and become the best. And I fought there and, of course, won it, lost it, came back, you know. Now, of course, sitting on the outside watching from the front row this year for the first time, you know, it's a new breed of guys up there. And, you know, bodybuilding's changed a little bit. I mean, I think I came in at a perfect time, and the battles against Ronnie were obviously the best days I had on stage. I'm great friends with Phil. Obviously, I brought Phil into it. You know, he won his 4th. He tied my record down. So, you know, I'm a big fan of his, and I thought he deservedly won the Olympia this year. I know a lot of people thought Kai Green should have won, but I was sitting front row, and I thought, you know, pretty clearly it was Phil. He wasn't at his best, but you can't, that's the problem with Mr. Olympia. I mean, they expect us to be better and better and better every year. It's very difficult to be, as long as you're just better than everyone else you're standing next to, that's the most important thing. And that's the thing with the Olympia. Every time I won, everyone's like, well, you could have been this or you could have been that. And that's what sucks about being the best. They're always going to critique you and tell you you need to improve this or that, but it doesn't, you know, you just say, well, I just won the best title in the world. You're going to enjoy it as much as you can. So, but I don't necessarily have that drive really to compete as much as I did before. Obviously, my business ventures are more important to me. Seeing my family is more important. I've been home more to see my family this year than I did in 15 years because of my travel schedule and my selfishness, because it takes a very selfish attitude to be the best at what you do. I mean, I lived, breathed, and slept bodybuilding. That's all I did. I did nothing else. I mean, I lived in a box, just ate, slept, and trained. All I wanted to be was the best. And, you know, I did it. So.
Do you have any plans for the future?
Right now, obviously, with the supplement brand, that's the big thing going on. I promote like 7 Jay Cutler amateur shows in the States, NPC contests. So I travel around doing those. When I get back, I have 2 back-to-back on a Saturday, Sunday, November 1st and 2nd. But mainly traveling with the brand, trying to build this thing now next couple of years. And I would still like to act. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about that over the years. I've been back, I have a place in California, so I've been actually working, taking some acting lessons, doing that. But right now, they're still saying I'm too big. I'm too big to play a lot of roles. And the thing is I'm limited because of my size and what I play in certain. Obviously, action films is going to be something that I shoot for, but I mean, I'll try to fit it anywhere I can. I just don't want to take just a small role if I can avoid it, you know. So that's really what I'd like to do eventually. But of course I'd have to downsize, and I'm having trouble doing that because I decide one day I want to be bigger and one day I want to be smaller, so.
Makes you feel over when you have to start losing all your weight and stuff like that, doesn't it? So.
It's, you know what, it's just hard because as soon as I start eating, I maintain. So I have to cut down a lot on my food, and I get hungry. I mean, I'm still eating, 6 meals a day, but I'd have to cut the portions in half and train half as much. It seems like when I don't train, then I shrink. But I love to train, that's the problem. Even if I just come in and train light with weights, I still maintain a lot of size. So.
So about your 5 shows you got in the States, you ever thought about doing any shows?
You know what, I've thought about it, but the problem is just I have to be here and help, need someone to help me organize that. So I'd be Zach Kahn actually talked to me about doing one in the UK with him. I guess he's involved in a couple, but we talked about it, but nothing's really come about. So that'd be something I'd like to do, because I'm big international. I mean, I didn't travel a lot over here when I was Mr. Olympia. I kind of held back a little bit from international travel because I was so busy in the States booking events. So it'd be something that I definitely would show interest in trying to do.
How many times a week would you recommend training calves?
Calves, I trained like every other body part. Listen, I did every day, I did high reps, low reps. What I found best for me is I train each body part once every 5 to 7 days. They say a body part needs 72 hours rest in between. I was one of the rare guys. I couldn't recover as fast, so I didn't train a body part twice a week. Once every 5 to 7 days was it. I just did a lot of sets, so I needed a lot more time to recover. So I always did calves on my chest day. I would do calves first when I walked in the gym. So, because sometimes, you do a big body part, then you're like, oh, I'm going to do some calves after. You never train it with the intensity, right? So I always went in the gym and I would do the calf exercises. I do seated, standing, and like maybe a leg press or donkey calf, depending on what machines you had. Usually about 4 sets each, but the reps would be the same. Anything 10 to 12 repetitions, heavy weight, but just full contraction. I think a lot of people get confused, and yes, I mean, genetics has something to do with it. Some people just can't grow their calves, but I've seen the smallest calves grow to some of the biggest ones, and trust me, I had no calves.
Yeah.
My arms were hard to grow, and my calves were hard to grow. Those were the two probably most stubborn body parts I had.
I wouldn't try good now.
I don't train them as much anymore, but I think as I got heavier too, walking around, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. If you're going to do calves, I mean, you don't realize how much you use the calves until you get injured, and I had a calf injury at one point. I was squatting and I rolled a little bit forward and I popped, like strained a muscle in my calf, and I could barely walk. And it makes more sense if you do heavy weights with lower repetitions, because you're walking around in your calves all day. You don't realize how much you use them when you walk. So I always stuck to just, heavier weights. Every body part, everything was 10 to 12 repetitions. I don't usually train. I mean, sometimes I did deadlifts, sixes or eights, but I always believed in bodybuilding sense. You always want to do repetitions, get the blood in there, work the nutrients in, get out of the gym and feed it. Okay? So I don't believe in the guys in there doing 3 reps on the bench press or 1 rep or, that's all bullshit. Everyone always asked me, like, how much you bench press, and I have no idea. I just always lied and said I did like 600 pounds. Depends who I was talking to. Every bodybuilder lies. It's like lying about their weight. No bodybuilder tells the truth about their weight. Everyone that competes is always 10 pounds heavier than what they really are.
So it was always 290, not the...
No, I didn't lie. I didn't lie. I'm about 260 now, so it's I didn't have to lie. I always said I was the greatest and the biggest, You got to think that way. So.
Did you have a bodybuilder who was your inspiration when you first get into it?
The first guy I saw was Chris Dickerson, who was a former Mr. Olympia. I picked up a magazine. My sister's boyfriend had it laying around the house, and I saw these guys with these muscles. I was like, holy shit, I want to look like this, And then I followed Bob Harris, has had a book in GNC. I walked in when I was 16. It was called Beyond Built, and that's how I kind of learned a little bit, because it was like a training book, so it showed the exercises. But it's more local guys. I mean, of course, I looked up to Arnold and all these guys, that were in the magazines. I think I met Lee Labrada for the first time at a show. But to be honest, like when I was up and coming, this is something I'll share with you guys, because it kind of it fits my personality trait. Every professional bodybuilder was, when I got bigger, they weren't real nice to me. Like it was, no one really was like comforting when I showed up. It was always like, no one ever like came up to me in the gym and said, oh, you have a lot of potential. Whereas I go and I try to tell people, like if I see a big guy in the gym, a guy that looks good, I'm always like, I'll stop and say, hey man, you look great, you know, you compete or whatever. And I said, if I ever become a star, or become, you know, really popular, I didn't think I'd be Mr. Olympia, but I said I'd always take the time to try to treat people like I expected to be treated. But, you know, a lot of guys were kind of dicks, you know, they were very arrogant, you know, and you shouldn't be that way. I mean, we all enjoy kind of the same thing, and you'll see it a lot among the guys. You know, people ask me about like Kai and Phil and their relationship. I mean, they hate each other. You know, I mean, me and Ronnie were very competitive. We didn't hate each other, but, you know, when I got on the stage with them, I didn't like them necessarily. I mean, we got along better once we retired. But we were, you know, the magazines kind of built us up, and it made us, like, kind of have a little more attention than what was needed. But we trained together in the off-season, so when we traveled a lot, we went and did a lot of things together. We went to the clubs together. But, you know, Kai and Phil, they don't have, you know, that wasn't an act. They don't like each other whatsoever. You know, I was just with Phil in Spain, you know, a few days ago, and that's all he was really talking about was how much he couldn't stand Kai. I get tired of listening to it, honestly. I mean, but they almost fought on the stage, you know, that was, you know, Kai, I think, said to him, I'm going to punch you in the face, and Phil said, no, you won't. I was in the front row, and I was like this, you know, they were like right here. I was like, oh man. But a lot of people thought it was kind of disrespectful, you know. I never seen that before on the stage, as much as, you know, what bothered me the most when I lost Olympias to Ronnie, he would fall on the floor, and I would be standing there like, okay, what do I do? It's kind of one of those things that was kind of awkward, you know. And then, of course, I won, and you know, Ronnie was pissed off, you know. But a lot of people ask me, what was the greatest moment in your career? I mean, for me, you know, I landed a Muscle and Fitness cover when I was like 21. I got to meet Joe Weider, and Joe Weider was a huge inspiration. Joe Weider moved me to California when I was 25. I mean, he paid me a lot of money to move out there, kind of like he did with Schwarzenegger. I mean, he said, I want you to move to the West Coast, be closer to magazines. We had a great relationship, and you know, I moved out there because of him, and he shot me like year-round because I stayed in really good shape. And when I won the Olympia and beat Coleman, I mean, of course, that was like, I couldn't believe it, I won. But really coming back in 2009, when everyone kind of wrote me off and said, oh, Jay's finished, I think that was probably the greatest moment. I think that was like the peak. I almost think nowadays I should have retired after that, because I remember going home and saying to all my crew, you know, I had a really good crew that year that helped me, saying, you know what, how do I pop this? How do I mean, it was my best condition I had been in, you know, if not ever, you know, since I was younger. I really couldn't top it. I mean, the place went crazy, and, you know, it was kind of revised my career, you know. And that was probably, that was probably the happiest time for me, because it was kind of redemption.
That was sort of when you were at your...
You know, I was 36 or 7, I think. I think that's I mean, you asked when the peak bodybuilder age is, I would say between 34 and 37. I think after that you start to, you know, the age does wear on you a little bit. You know, what happens is mostly if you see a lot of the older guys, they lose that fullness, that crazy pop to the muscle, unless they start later in life. I mean, remember I started at 18, so you're going to peak in your mid-30s. If you start when you're 25, you know, like Phil, he may peak when he's 40. I mean, it's a big difference. And I mean, that's scary to think. He's already won 4, you know, so he's 35 now. So it's kind of one of those things you got to you can gauge it that way. I mean, it's hard to say when the peak actually is, but I think if you do start a little later, I think after years and years, eventually your body takes a toll with the weight training. Remember, we're not supposed to really I don't think the body's even built for resistance training, and people break down in different ways. I may feel great now at 41, but in 10 years, I mean, that may not be the case. I mean, I'm trying to lighten up the load a lot when I train and not to go crazy. And that's another thing that factors in when if I want to come back and compete or not, because it's, you know, it's going to have to go into that intensity again, that eating pattern, that selfishness. I mean, there's a lot of things I want to enjoy in my life at this point. But you got to have that balance. You got to. That's the most important thing.
Jay, when you went back in 2009, what did you do differently to what you did in 2006?
You know what? You know, my training. I did a little bit of that FST7 training with Hani, which I did. You know, a lot of, you know, more sets at the end to kind of fill up. But my diet changed a lot, where I ate a lot more than I ever did. I actually hated it because I ate till I was, you know, pretty much I couldn't eat anymore. I did more cardio than I ever did for the show, but I ate a lot more food than I ever did for a show. And I just think the change worked really well with my body. And then in 2010, I wasn't as good, but I did the same thing. So that just goes to show, I mean, when you do the same thing over and over, you got to change all the time. You can't say, well, I looked great in this year, so I'm going to go back and look at my journal, because I logged every year. I have books in my mom's attic that from when I started. I mean, I wrote everything I ever did. And you can't do the same thing. Your body changes. You add a pound or two of muscle, it changes the whole metabolism, everything. But for me, ideally, cardio first thing in the morning is, if you guys want to get lean, I mean, that's what I always suggest. I do try to do 40 minutes every morning now just to stay leaner. If you're going to do it secondary, it's going to be after your weight training session or before you go to bed at night. I usually cut carbs, you know, my last meal of the day, but I'll have steak to keep fullness. But I do a zigzag diet rotation. A lot of you may or not know what that is. So what I do is I try to eat like the same amount of calories, but I adjust the sources it's from. So if I'm eating 3,000 calories a day, you know, some days I'll eat higher carbohydrates than protein. But as you know, protein and carbohydrates have the same amount of calories. So I'll do a fluctuation. So some days I'll eat higher protein, and then drop the carbohydrates down, and then other days I'll up the carbohydrates and drop the protein way down. So you kind of get that shift where the calories stay the same, but the sources come different. So if you're trying to lean down, I take 4 months to get ready for the Olympia to lean down. So if I was 290, I would only drop about 10 pounds, and I'd lose water the last few weeks and drop to about 260, 265 was the goal. So I always tried to, you know, just try to get, you know, take time to lose the body fat but maintain the muscle. And a lot of times, a lot of us gain weight when we're training for the Olympia. I mean, we're so dedicated in the diet. Remember, I traveled more than anyone off season. So for me, it's staying home for those 4 months in training. I always cut my travel and just focused on the training. It's really important to, you know, sleep right, you know, eat those meals. I always ate fish when I wanted to get leaner. Always thin your skin a little more, white fish. I would eat red meat at least once a day for the fullness, and then I mainly eat chicken. But to be honest, like, I hate all kinds of food. When we're here, I mean, I've been eating chicken, and you know, he's been trying to get me to eat steak, but I tell him I eat steak, I get too big, so I'm trying to keep the steak down. You know? Seriously, if I eat steak like twice a day, I mean, I'll put on 10 pounds in a week easy without even. It's crazy because it's just I get so much bigger, and right now I'm not trying to get too big. You know, I want to stay a little leaner and tone down. Well, I still, something like I said, I want to wake up. I mean, I was looking at myself before I came I had to sleep like 10 minutes, you know, because we did the events today. So I said, I'm going to set the alarm. I just need 10 minutes. That 10-minute sleep is way better than 20, 30, or 40, because you can actually wake up and you're not tired. So I slept for 10 minutes, and I got up and I looked in the mirror and I'm like, oh, you know, I don't look so big today, you know. So I drank 1 scoop of amino pump, and then I mixed another one in here while I trained and came to the gym. You know, I honestly probably wouldn't have trained if we didn't have it set up to come here and train. So you guys that say, you know, what motivates you? Would you ever have days where you don't want to work out? Today was that day. I probably wouldn't have came and trained if it wasn't for you guys. Because I was tired, man. I've been on my feet all day, and you know, we've been going here, going there, and of course I went to Spain before I came over here. I'm on a 17-day tour, you know, 7 countries in 17 days, and I think it's the longest tour anyone's ever done, and you know, any athlete like that. So we still have a lot of stops to go, so I'm trying to kind of pace myself a little bit, not get sick. Obviously, shaking hands and breathing in front of 1 million people, it's my immune system's crazy. I mean, it takes a lot for me to get sick. So hopefully not in 2 days I won't be sick. After saying that, you know, I have to wait.
How many times a week do you train house?
Usually every other day. When I'm training for a contest, I'll train them every day, but like I did them 2 days ago. I was thinking about doing it tonight, but I'd rather talk to you guys a little bit and take the time, you know. Appreciate you guys coming out, so I want everyone to ask a question or whatever, so.
Got like a strict training routine you stick to, or is it just sort of-
You know what, it's funny you asked that. Like when I was training, I would train like on a 2 day on, 1 day off. I could only train 2 days in a row without being exhausted because of the sets I do. But right now I train every day that I can, and I train, if I come in the gym, like the hardest one I have training right now is my leg training, because I train at like sometimes these little tiny hotel gyms and they have nothing for legs. So my legs are kind of, you know, my leg training's been slacking a little bit. I got to train them a couple days ago. But I train back 1 day, arms 1 day, chest 1 day, shoulders 1 day, legs 1 day. So I have a split schedule, whatever it is. I think now I've trained, I didn't train yesterday, was the first day I didn't train, but I trained every body part straight in a row before that. And then I'll probably train straight through now. I don't think I'm gonna take a day off now for a while, because now, of course, every city I go, they're expected, okay, Jay's gonna come to the gym and train. So no matter what, I gotta try to make up some kind of workout to go train.
Where are you off to next? After?
Denmark. I finish in the UK, then I go to Denmark. I'm in Holland, then I go to Germany, Austria, and Poland. I finish in Poland, then back to States.
What's your favourite body part to train?
Back or legs, the hardest ones. Those are my hardest body parts. So on those kind of days, like I eat the most calories in the week. So I always train, like eat higher calories on those days. I believe in that. I mean, when you can exert more. And I always like doing the heavy rows. I like to squat, front squat, all the challenging stuff. I hate training arms. It's boring to me. I mean, there's not much to it. Chest training was pretty good too. Chest was a hard body part for me to build. I always push more with the chest and less with the weights. I mean, everyone wants to bench press a lot, but I always tell everyone, make sure, you know, you get that contraction, and, you know, I always, like I said, do weights that I can do 10 to 12 repetitions, work for the pump, less rest time and more intensity. So if I was training with a partner, the partner would go, I would go. Nothing in between. I was pretty serious about, like, you know, the rest times.
When you're outside the gym, you're away from it, what's the thing you do to relax? Or...
You know, I read a lot. You know, I live in Vegas, obviously. You guys know that. So I try to relax as much as possible. It's very rare that I'm by myself. And I'll be honest, sometimes I sit in my house in silence, because it's like after a weekend of touring and like being around people like these expos. I just worked at the Arnold Expo. I can't take it, you know. I just gotta just shut out and you know, I just either watch TV or read, or, you know, just do something relaxing and listen to music. I mean, I'll go to the gym and work out, honestly. I mean, I have a motorcycle, I ride my motorcycle. I have a dog, I like spending time with the dog. I mean, it's a Kai and Phil show. I mean, of course it was me and Ronnie too back then, but, you know, there were some great guys too. But it's just, you don't know. I mean,